Prithvi, good morning. Akib. Yeah, relatively much better, Akib. So students, now in this case, this assessment procedure, penalties, appeals, recovery, and AAR, students, is what primarily I'm going to go through it. At the same time, students, we are going to also do a revision of these particular provisions as well. So through this particular, the case studies that is there with us, primarily, we will be looking into this particular aspect first, and then thereafter we will proceed further in our discussion thereafter. So I'll take one by one each and every part of the question, students, over here now. Question number 18, Meghna. The business premises of Mr. Arjun was searched on 17th of April 2022 under section 132, consequent to which the assessing officer has in his possession documents revealing information pertaining to shares purchased in the previous year 2016-2017 for 23 lakhs and in previous year 17-18 for rupees 25 lakhs. Three questions, students, Nidhi. Three questions have been targeted over here. So a search is conducted in this regard, students. Then thereafter, in findings are there that the assessee is in the possession of documents which reveals what he has purchased what the shares in the two previous year amounting to 23 lakhs and 25 lakhs. First question, students, happens to be can the assessing officer issue notice under section 148 for bringing to tax the income escaping assessment? Can the AO issue notice under 148 for bringing to tax the income escaping assessment? That is point number one. Second one, would your answer if shares purchased in previous year 16-17 were for rupees 30 lakhs instead of 23 lakhs? And what would be your answer if consequent to search the assessing officer has in his possession, consequent students, consequent to search primary, if the assessing officer in his possession documents revealing information pertaining to expenditure of 52 lakhs incurred for marriage of his daughter in previous year 16-17 instead of information pertaining to shares. So these are the aspect which has been there in this regard, students. Now we will look into this entire thing one by one, exactly how the thing goes in for this particular discussion. Let's have a look, students, in this regard. Now, students, section 147, if you see over here, primarily the mandate, as you can see in this context, students, as far as 147 is concerned, this is an important particular part, students, and therefore in this context, students, section number 148. Now, in this regard, students, what is the scenario? In this situation, students, what the situation is? The AO family, if any income chargeable to tax has escaped the assessment for any AY, then subject to section 140 to 153, what the A can do? He can assess or reassess, such income, students, such income plus what? Plus any income which comes to his notice, subsequently during the course of the proceedings under section during the course of the proceedings under section 147, during the course of the proceedings under section 147. So this is primarily the entire factual aspect of this one. So what he can do, he can assess or reassess such income or any income any other income. Students, please write this particular term instead of any income, any other income. Now for this particular part, students, 148A is mandatory, whereas for this particular part 148 is not required. Now what is 148A, students? We will discuss. If you all copied on this one. And students, here there are certain exceptions as well that we will consider it. Exception as well that we will consider it, students. If you all are through with this one, students, let's start discussing on this particular part. If you all are through, students, now in this particular context, let's discuss this particular part out very carefully in this regard. So, students, in this particular context, first of all, what is this 148A? Students, 148A requires a kind of a preliminary inquiry. 148A requires a preliminary inquiry, students, in this context. And the preliminary inquiry in this scenario would be in this scenario, students, would be that 148A talks about, students, which we are discussing in this context, that first he need to conduct an inquiry before he comes to a conclusion that 147 is required, because it is like an income escaping or the reassessment which he is going to do. So first you precisely do an inquiry, students, in this context. Students, if you see over there that the inquiry needs to be done, particularly that whether 147 is required or not, that is point number one. So therefore, once he does the inquiry, he will gather some sort of a material or the evidences, and on that particular basis he will then be in a position to decide whether 147 is required or not. But before now he acts upon the material that he has gathered and he wants to issue now the notice under 147. He need to first give the assessee an opportunity of being heard, that look, I have done the inquiry, I have got some materials with me, and I think that this is a fit case for me to initiate 147. And in that case, students, what will happen is this, that he will be then students, will be giving him that notice of an opportunity based on the material that he has gathered, and then thereafter, students, he can then proceed further to do the assessment. Then thereafter, students, he can then proceed primarily to do the assessment, but not before the opportunity has been given to whom? To this particular person. So that is what, students, you should always keep in mind. These are the important steps, that first you do your inquiry, gather the material, and before you proceed further to do 147, give the assessee an opportunity of being heard. And only after the opportunity is given that the notice would be given for under 147 to start the process under 147 of reassessment. However, now while the assessment is going on, students, in this case, it may so happen, once he starts the assessment under 147, students, it may so happen that he may find out something new items or some new materials which primarily was not, which was not, which didn't came to his notice, at the start of the proceedings of 147. But while he started the proceeding of 147, then thereafter in between, some new particular income which has also escaped the assessment has come to his notice. So question therefore is, can those particular income can also be considered while the assessment of 147 is being conducted? And the answer is yes, it can be. For that is separate notice required to be given under 148A. A separate notice is required under 148A, students. So, students, in this context, students, 148A. Is there a disturbance, students, on this note? I hope that, students, the disturbance is now not there. All the disturbance is not there, no? That is fine, I suppose now. Then why disturbance is over? I think now should be fine, but you can just let me know primarily if still there are some issues which are there. Now in this context, I think that should not now be an issue. So students, if supposingly in between I found out some new income, then whether on that particular new income can that particular note can the I can continue in the same proceedings, or do I have to give a fresh notice? Fresh notice requirement is not there. In the same particular proceedings that you have already started under 147, these new income can be assessed or reassessed. For that, no separate notice under 148A is required to be given. No separate notice under 148A is required to be given in this context. So in this regard, students, in certain cases, students, in certain particular cases, section 148A is not required. And what are those particular cases where section 148A is not required? As I told you, there are certain exceptions to this principle, and the exception in these cases, you will not be required to give the opportunity to the SSC, those inquiry and the opportunity which has to be given before you start 147. In these cases, it will not be required. So what are those particular cases, students, in this context? Let's have a look in this scenario. In the exception particular part, which you can see over here, in the exception particular part, students, which you can now see over here, what is the scenario? Please have a look, students. Please have a look. So this is what primarily the situation is. First is, if supposedly the proceedings is started under 132 or 132A, that is a search proceedings. If it is a search proceeding, students, please be careful on the fact that no particular case would be required for the purpose of any notice under 148A. So if it is a proceedings which has been initiated under section 144, under section 140, under section 140, if any particular search proceedings have been initiated under section 147, then in that particular case, students, such notice will not be required. Now in this context, 142, 132 is therefore is the case. If you now have a look into this, so let's look upon to this particular part. Now students, over here The next question is about, in this context, very importantly, unless students, in this particular context, herein, this particular situation would be there. Now, over here, please be careful. What is therefore important is the procedures now. Students, the procedures to be followed, and these are the procedures, students, to be followed, would be under section 148 to section 153. Now I think, students, now everything would be fine in terms of any disturbance which are being there. I think now let's proceed in this context. Now 148 notice talks about the first one, students, 148 notice. So far as 148 notice is concerned, it talks about the condition when the notice can be issued under section 148. So under what condition that the notice has to be issued? So they have given to you, students, certain condition. If it is fulfilled, only then the notice can be issued under section 148. So herein, first of all, the important that is this, that the AO should have the information. Information about what? That the income chargeable to tax, income chargeable to tax has escaped the assessment, has escaped the assessment. In this particular context, AO should have the information that the income chargeable to tax has escaped the assessment. Now, if this information is there, that the income chargeable to tax has escaped the assessment, now what exactly this information will constitute? So, information, students, would mean, what does information would mean? Now, they have given you, students, various sources from which the information is there. Now, this is an important many a times, because that what constitute an information on the basis of which the AO will be giving the notice under 148, because unless there is an information, the AO cannot proceed. So one is those which is coming through the from the risk management strategy formulated by the board, which is nothing but your system itself, the system of the IT department. From there the information is flowing to the assessing officer. So information which is flagged, from this particular risk management system. So that is point number one. The In this particular context, the second one, students, which is an amendment of Finance Act 2022 over here, and that is to do with the audit objection, students. The audit objection that has taken place. So even now the audit objections which has been there, on the basis of that particular audit objections which is meant for a particular AY, the assessing officer can proceed to do the assessment, students, in this case. Other information is those information received students, even this is the Finance Act 2022, the information, students, which has been received, information received primarily under section 90 and 90, that is the true treaty. Through the treaty route, the information is received in this particular context. And the last one is the information which is through the order of the court. So information in consequence of the order of the court. So now these are the of the court. Now students, these are the amendment point. All these are the amendment point of the Finance Act 2022. So information on the basis of which the notice would be given, students, one is those which is coming from the system itself of the income tax department, which from that it flows to all the AOs. So AO has got that information, and on that basis he want to proceed. If he wants to proceed, he will have to then check 148A, because 148A is the, before he give the notice, he need to give an opportunity of being heard. So that is the point. The second particular, as I told you, the amendment part is about the audit objection, is about the information which is received under 90, and the last one, students, is the information in consequence of the order, of the court. So these are the various aspects, students, which are being given over here. And then thereafter, students, on this particular basis, we will proceed further quickly on this regard. Students, after this one information, there is also the concept of deemed information, that in these cases the AO is deemed to have the information. Deemed information, students. Now, in these particular cases, students, the AO is deemed to have information. So there is no particular this thing that we will question that whether the AO has information or not. In these cases, the AO has deemed to have information. So nobody will question that whether Mr. AO, do you have the information? In these cases, AO has always deemed to have an information. Which are those cases, students? Technically speaking, over here in this context, and this deemed information which has been there, students, is for 3 AYs, students, is for 3 AYs relevant to what? Relevant to the previous year. Now, which is the previous year, students? So 3 years, students, this is a big thing that is going to take place. Deemed information for 3 years. Which are the cases wherein the deemed information will be there for 3 years, and basis of which the 3 years can be opened up? Minimum 3 years can be opened up, students, for the purpose of assessment or reassessment, and that, students, is 132, 132A, And the next one is 133A. That's survey, student. Survey also provides for the cases of the deemed information. The survey, students, also provides for the cases of the deemed information, and the search under 132 and 132A also provides for the deemed information, and that is for the period of 3 years, students. Relevant to the previous year, in which relevant 3 for 3A is relevant to uh, 3A is preceding the AY. Which AY? Relevant to 3 AYs preceding to the AY relevant to the previous year, in which the search is initiated. The search is initiated. So for 3 AYs preceding the AY relevant to the previous year in which the search or survey, you can say survey, search or survey is initiated. I hope that all of you now are clear on this particular part. So this is one of the very important particular aspects so far as 147 is concerned. So other than the search and survey, students, other than the search and survey, what we will say, other than the search and survey, the information, students, is for that particular year itself. There is no deemed information for this one. So if it is now not a search or if it is not a survey, students, then you can easily see that is only relevant for that particular year itself. That is it. But if it is a search and the survey, because of that 147 is happening, then it is deemed that the AO has the information for the 3 years period. Now one important point, students, over here before we proceed further, and that important point is that the deemed for 132 132A, for 132 132A, whether 148A notice, students, is it required to be given? That before he starts doing 147, then whether he need to give the notice of 148A, answer is no. But what about for 133A survey, students? In this case, whether the notice of 148A, whether that needs to be given, and the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, students. So that is how the things has to be looked upon, students. I hope that, I think, Banu, all the noise is gone now. I suppose there is no issue on the noise part. Now, once this has been done, students, once this has been done, once this has been done, Just then give me 5 minutes. I'll just try to. Uh, shall I share you the new link in this case? Let me then come to this. I'll refresh the system and I'll generate the new link. Is that okay with all of you? I think then in that case it should not be a problem. Allow me then 5-10 minutes. I'll just share with you the new link in this case. Just then give me 5 minutes. I'll just try to. Shall I share you the new link in this case? Let me in fact do this new link because otherwise the entire this lecture would be a very lengthy lecture. But I just want to finish it off this entire assessment with the revision and other things also. So it would be a lengthy lecture. It will go up till 2 o'clock, students. So we will complete the assessment and definitely I'm also going to target the penalties and all. So till 2 o'clock I'm going to do it. So we cannot keep doing it in this case. 10 minutes, students. Again, I'm sharing this link for all of you in your group. Okay, then I think it should not be the scenario. I'm sharing it 10 minutes in the same